Chronicles of the Origin System, Excerpt 44. Xaku. Both a tragedy and an anomaly, Xaku is a creation defined by loss and shaped by the Void's boundless chaos. Once the three Warframes that now comprise Xaku were loyal instruments of the Entrati, the ancient Orichan family tasked with harnessing the Void's power. These warriors served as protectors and experiments alike, acting as conduits for the Entrati's relentless exploration of the Void's secrets. But their loyalty would be their undoing. During the Old War, the three were cast adrift into the Void, lost to the ages, their forms and identities fractured by its corrosive energies. Over countless ages, the Void fused these shattered remnants into a single twisted being, a mosaic of three distinct Warframes now known as Xaku. The Void's influence did more than unite them, it transformed them. As the Lotus reflects, the Void does not create, it remakes. Xaku is the embodiment of the Void's chaotic will, their existence blurring the line between destruction and renewal. Their powers, once tailored by the Entrati for specific purposes, are now unbound and alien, warped by their long exposure to the Void's inscrutable energies. The whispers of the Void, ever-present and insidious, seep through Xaku's very being, granting them abilities that defy the natural order and strike terror into those who once sought to control them. The Entrati's experiments meant to exploit the Void's potential inadvertently gave rise to a force that could neither predict nor command. A Void-touched demon with only one purpose. Xaku's story is one of rebellion, both against their creators and the Orichan Empire they once served. By wielding the Void's chaotic power, they turned the tools of oppression back on their masters, standing as a testament to the futility of Orichan hubris. Their fractured nature is a symbol of survival, resilience, and transformation, bridging the gap between the entrancing mysteries of the Void and the fragile reality of the Origin System. In Xaku, the Void speaks, not with clarity, but with purpose, reminding all who encounter them of the peril and potential of the unseen. They are shunned and misunderstood by many, but Xaku embodies resistance against tyranny and the unpredictability of existence itself, a haunting force that bridges the gap between the Origin System and the infinite darkness of the Void. Xaku, Thrice Entwined, the Void Touched.
Oh hey Dreamers, fancy meeting you guys here. This is Chronicles of the Origin System, showcasing our level cap Xaku Prime build. Now we wanted to take a little bit of time and make sure that we weren't just rushing to push something out. So with that said, let's jump right into the abilities and then we'll showcase the build. Shifting their pieces unpredictably, Xaku has a 25% dodge chance to harmlessly phase through incoming enemy weapon attacks while protected by a 25% damage reduction against area of effect damage. Passive dodge chance and area damage reduction both raise to 75% while the Devastation time is activated. Moving on, we will look at Xata's Whisper. Wield void damage for all attacks from equipped weapons when activated. That really ultimately turns into one extra hit per damage instance. Now, this is going to ultimately take all the damage that you do, it is going to duplicate that damage into a final instance. This can also be double and triple dipped off Bane mods, Roar, etc. So, use it as you need to. Grasp of Loke. Void tendrils steal weapons from nearby enemies to use as your own floating auto-targeting armaments. Damage output increases based on enemy level. Now, keep in mind, the amount of guns that you will be able to pull will be directly increased by your range. This is one of the main reasons that most Xaku builds will have at least 235%, and all the good builds will have 280. Now, we will augment our builds based on that and try to create as much of a hybrid build as we can. A lot of builds that you will see will have a very low strength, but even though this is going to be our main damage output, it is actually not the showcase of the build. So, keep that in mind, but you can have a range of 16 guns, and again, those scale on enemy level and ability strength. So, absolutely fantastic. Nourish. Enemies that attack or are attacked suffer viral damage up to 1 stack, and energy sources provide more energy. These buffs extend to squad mates. Now, most builds will subsume Xata's Whisper off of this, but what we're looking to do is create more of a hybrid weapon frame, as well as using the Grasp of Loke and the Vastan Time in conjunction with each other. So we are adding Nourish in here for a hefty dose of energy management, as well as an added primer aside from our secondary weapon. So anytime we take damage, there will be an explosion that emits from the Warframe, and it will allow us to spread viral to those enemies around us. So we will obviously constantly be taking damage, so keep that in mind. The Vastan Time, this is the star of the build. This is the MVP. Now, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, you know, we're going to use the Vastan Time. It pauses the duration of all of our other, you know, abilities. We're not actually worried about that. What we're looking to do is spam the Vastan Time as much as possible for that amazing slow that we get from it. So looking at the build in just a moment, you'll see that we slotted in Precision Intensify, and ultimately for the Vastan Time, we are sitting at somewhere close to 400% strength. So temporarily shed the outer pieces of Xaku in a destructive blast and stalk the battlefield in a new, swifter skeletal form. Enemies damaged by the body shrapnel are rendered weaker to void damage. Xaku's other active abilities duration is frozen in time and resumes once the Vastan Time expires. So, with a very high ability strength, we will be stopping the whole tile set. Not to mention we're sitting at around 70 meters. So, the build is going to look something like this. We are going to be sitting at 280% range, obviously Augur Reach, Stretch, Overextended, Cunning Drift to get us up there. We are then also going to build our strength up with Transient Fortitude, Blind Rage, Molt Augmented, and 4 red Tau Forge Shards at 15% ability strength each. Now what this is going to do is it is going to build our strength up to right around 314% between Transient Fortitude, Blind Rage, and Molt Augmented. And then Precision Intensify is going to add another 90% only to the Vastan Time. Now, this is going to ensure that we have a maximum stop on our slow ability. And on top of that, you know, there are a slew of other benefits to using the Vastan Time too. Not only are we getting an explosion, we're making them more susceptible to void damage, but also getting that 75% dodge chance that will add on to our passive. So it really is just one of the most amazing abilities, and to just finish all of that off, it will pause the duration of Zada's Whisper and Grasp of Loke. And then we'll slot in Molt Efficiency just for a little bit of added duration for the Vastan Time. Now onto the Archon Shards. We're going to be using 4 Crimson Tau Forged Archon Shards for ability strength and 1 Violet Archon Shard for a little bit of that equilibrium energy management to help us with Nourish and whatnot. Now onto our weapons. It doesn't matter what weapon you use ultimately. You know, depending on the mission, you're going to use what you want to use. So ultimately for disruption missions, there are a few weapons I like to use. The Kuva Hek is definitely in the top 5 for me. It is an amazing one-shot shotgun. It has a shit ton of multi-shot. Scattered Justice adds 200% multi-shot. It gives you a 25-meter blast explosion, 25% health, and 15% armor for 30 seconds when you fill up the bar. A nice ribbon, you know, would encompass multi-shot and damage, crit chance, crit damage, multi-shot. Throw in primary frostbite for some crit damage and multi-shot, and you are sitting pretty. The alternate fire will shoot all 4 barrels simultaneously. So when you prime the enemy properly, you will one-shot anything. Now, as far as the arcane goes, you can slot in anything. Primary deadhead, primary dexterity, all of them will work. Galvanized Hell is obviously going to be the main component to making sure that you are stacking as much damage as possible. Get those 4 kills, do not forget. Now, the funnest part of Xaku Prime, in my opinion, is the Quassus Prime. Now, this is actually quite an amazing melee weapon. The main showcase of it is that it force procs slash on the heavy attack and also shoots out a multitude of daggers. Now, we are going to be building this for slash and toxin and using melee afflictions to duplicate those stacks. Now, the special case with this is that with Xaku Prime, it makes those daggers more accurate. It focuses them into a tighter cone of damage. Now, with melee afflictions, slash and toxin, we are doing a massive amount of DOT damage. Once we prime them and hit them with this, they're almost always dead in one hit. This will one-shot any Demolist. Feel free to slot in Blood Rush for Galvanized Reflex, but I have noticed that I have not needed to go over 5x with my combo multiplier to do adequate damage, so mod as you need. Onto our secondary primer. My favorite of the day is the Kuva Nukor. You can tag on 5 status effects. It still melts level cap enemies. Secondary Encumber. Also make sure that every built-in condition overload that you might have on any part of your build is going to be maxed out damage-wise. You can't really go wrong with the Nukor. It is an AoE spray and pray weapon that does a crap ton of damage, but use whatever you need to in that matter. We're going to be using the Nautilus Prime. Really, the only reason that we're using the Nautilus Prime is for Synth Deconstruct at this point in time. It's just helping us out with a little bit of equilibrium. And then the big caveats to using them is Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond. Ultimately, Reinforced Bond will build us up, giving us 60% fire rate when we have over 1200 shields. And then Tenacious Bond, when we have over 50% crit chance, will give us that 1.2x final crit damage multiplier on all of our weapons. You can't go wrong with it. The name of the game ultimately is to do as much damage as possible and make sure they die in one hit. So this is our Verglas Prime build. We're slotting in Corrosive and Cold. This is to make sure that we're constantly proccing Primary Frostbite on our primary weapon, as well as freezing the other targets and activating Shivering Contagion as well. So we will constantly be spreading cold damage to all the enemies around. Huge shout out to my fellow Tenno HairlessPersian. He is the one who originally showed me this build. Took me from a low strength to a high strength build, and I gotta admit I couldn't be happier with how this Xaku Prime has been set up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed another excerpt of cinematic lore from the Chronicles of the Origin system as we delve into the backstories of the Warframes themselves. Make sure to follow these content creators. This is the Demon Prince, wishing you all the damage in the world. I'll see you guys in the void.